I've said it once, I'll say it again. If Nicolas Cage is even a little bit a part of it, I'm in.
You should be prepared for that.
Maybe we should cool this thing off.
What? What do you mean?
It's embarrassing.
Which part?
Guess I'll see you in my dreams.
Yeah. Of course not.
And today we have Dream Scenario. This has been hyped up for me for a little while. For one, as I'm sure I've made no secret of in my channel and in my day-to-day life as a cinephile, I do love Nicolas Cage, unironically. Not just for the memes, not just for the whole bombastic performances and crazy moments and quotable scenes, and like all that aside, I've said this for a while, I genuinely think he's a fantastic actor. Like in anything that he does, he puts his heart and soul into it, and if you watch an interview, especially one of the more recent ones, his process for characters and how he approaches each and every film is so different and unique, and yet still has that like certain flair to it. Bravado, there's nuance, there's... I'm getting ahead of myself. Once again, the hype was being built up because Nicolas Cage in a leading role, I said, oh boy, the premise was like, whoa, what a creative, interesting looking premise. And of course, say it with me now everybody, A24, in my opinion, they don't really back bad horses. I can't think of a single A24 movie that I watched and I was like, oh, well, that was shite. Like, no, nothing like that. They're great. I love them. Trying to temper my expectations, but we couldn't all help but to be excited about it, you know? Director is a Norwegian director and screenwriter by the name of Christopher Borgli. I know I'm saying it wrong. I already know, but old Christoph here, I'm sure maybe his friends call him. So he's been directing films since 2011, and there's one film that I regret it. I wanted to catch it. It came out last year, and it made the rounds again in my local art house cinema right before Dream Scenario came out. For one, my local art house cinema rocks, so they did a bunch of different Nicolas Cage movies leading up to this, some of his most notable. And then they even had this movie, Sick of Myself, which the trailer got me. It's a foreign film. I was really wanting to see this, but I just couldn't catch a screening in time. For those that don't know, a very quick, brief summary. Nicolas Cage plays your everyday, like literally just Joe Schmo. He's a college professor, low-key, kind of a boring guy, simple guy. I don't want to say a loser, but like what society would probably call a loser, you know? I mean, all of a sudden, all these people that are both close to him in his life, but also, you know, students that he teaches, strangers on the street are like, you seem familiar, where do I know you from? Hey, I had a dream about you. I had a dream about a guy, and it was also him. And then we realized that more and more people, not only in America, but like around the world, everybody for some reason is dreaming about his character. And what's the kicker is that in all these dreams, he's just there. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't say anything. He just kind of walks in and it's just like, and that's it. And it's a phenomenon. And because of that, all of a sudden, boom, he goes viral and explodes, and then that's the movie. And the trailer kind of hints at like a darker undercurrent, or, you know, there's still the question of why is this happening? Why is it him? And the film then opens itself up to the deeper question of both fame and infamy in society, and how we as people kind of treat and revere people that are famous, and then subsequently might shun them if we then feel spurned by them. Great premise for a movie. I was immediately hooked. We're all in it to win it. As I already kind of briefly touched on, but we're getting into the pros of the film, I like the commentary that it does offer regarding society and like the rise and fall of people that we hold a certain value to. People going viral happens all the time in this world, and when someone goes viral, suddenly, boom, everybody cares about that person. It means so many different things. People want to like get them for a book deal, for a TV spot. They want to get movie rights. People want to profit off it. People want to bask in their light, get them to get signings, get attention by them. And people that are held in a positive light like that hold a surprising amount of power in society. That can also lead to ego and pride, and that can also influence people. Power most often, if not always, corrupts in people, which then leads to the inverse of that, the study of then the opposite effect of what happens when society doesn't like a person or deems this person to be not good, bad, malicious in intent. Then everybody in society, it's the polar opposite reaction. You become a pariah and people don't respect you, even regardless of if you did anything or not, regardless if you said anything or not. If the large consensus of people in society believe you to be a certain way or hold a certain opinion of you, then that's the democratic process, ain't it, folks? That's just that's what it is. Just like that, overnight even, you become the black sheep. Nobody likes you, and then you're done. You're canceled, which this film also does kind of put its toe into those weird, murky waters of cancel culture, which, based on who you ask, is real, isn't real. But all this movie does is hold a mirror up to society, showing us kind of both how fame works, but also how cancel culture can just as quickly, if not even more quickly, work as well. This is powerful. Obviously, Nic Cage, I don't think he ever turns in a bad performance. I think the only thing that can be tied with Nicolas Cage in the word bad is if the movie he is in is like trash, if it's dog water. If that's the case, I can admit there have been movies I've watched where the movie is garbo, but just the fact that Nicolas Cage, that Nick is in there, just elevates it for me. It gives me something to experience still from the movie. I still profit from it. I still enjoy it. So no matter what the film is, if it has Nicolas Cage in it, I'm going to enjoy it. And this is one of those great moments where it's both a good, solid film with a great performance by Nicolas Cage. He's ironically and unironically hilarious in this film. He plays this character so well. There's a lot to unpack with this movie. There's definitely a narrative. There's definitely a arc for Nicolas Cage's character, and plot points, narrative progression happens, but by the end of it, without making so much in the way of major spoilers, you won't get all the answers. I won't say what answers you do get, but I will say you don't get all the answers. You can make some theories, and there's some theories we made in my friend group and my fellow cinephiles that I think we can kind of, stand by a little bit on some fairly solid footing. But overall, this movie has a lot to unpack. There's a lot this movie says about society, and there's some potential explanations that could be extrapolated, but for the most part, there's still a mystery pervading dream scenario that we don't quite get to crack, and that's kind of okay. It does leave one a bit dissatisfied, which is admittedly a bit of a con of the film, but I think for all intents and purposes, it works. Direction, fun and creative. Cinematography. I don't want to say cinematography is super fancy, but I will say that it's a cut above the rest. There's some unique moments in direction. There is music used in the film, but often silence speaks even louder, and it's left down to what the characters say, what they do. It's a lot of scenes of just silence and just very, very minimal Foley work, like very minimal, like just noise going on, and just kind of those silences, like I said, they speak for themselves. Those scenes work really well for me, and so the direction of this film is great, which in tandem with the actors and the cast and all that, it comes together very well. I did put this as a pro at the end of the day. The film definitely has its fair share of ambiguous moments, but also just overall, like from an overall narrative, you look at the film over here in the corner, you're like, okay, aspects of this film are kind of vague. What the director is trying to show us and tell us comes across, but in doing so, at the same time, we get the main message of the film, but there's main points of the film that aren't resolved, but it's okay. Like it would be better if they were resolved, but it's okay that they weren't. At least in cons of the film, I do believe that also some of these points do work to its detriment. I think for some people this film is going to be a bit too vague and ambiguous. I think that the ending especially, it's fitting. It's a realistic ending given our society and given the path these characters were on, and especially what path Nicolas Cage put himself on. It all tracks, it makes sense that it goes and ends the way that it does, but at the same time, I can see how people wouldn't like the ending, and personally, although it's one of those films where I accept the ending, I accept it for what it is, it's part of the film, which I overall enjoyed, but I personally didn't love the ending. Like, I can accept it, I'll take it, sure, but not my preferred outcome. I don't think it's a spoiler because the clips of the film that have come out so far kind of make this suggestion, and the film alludes to a darker undercurrent as well. I'm not a huge fan of how the film goes from a cautionary tale of sorts about pride and ego and like dream theory, which it's cool that there's dream theory in there. I forgot to put that as a pro. The use of dream theory, you can extrapolate and attempt to interpret a lot because there is no exact science to dreams, right? It's just your mind doing what it thinks it needs to do, digging up, subconscious or maybe even somewhat semi-conscious thoughts. I know some people can lucid dream and do X, Y. I'm no professional, but I just know that dreams, nobody has concrete answers for them. And I like how this film takes that concept and philosophy of dreams not always making sense and applies it in spades. People have some random and weird ass dreams, and that's exactly what this film showcases. However, getting back to my point, I don't like how this goes from a cautionary tale about pride and ego and a study in dream theory, and then borderline ends up being into just like I don't know what you'll call it, like a Greek tragedy, Shakespearean tragedy, whatever makes more sense. He's a teacher. We'll say Shakespearean, why not? He's fancied himself a writer, so sure. Having a character learn a lesson is one thing, but I don't think this particular character did anything so egregious as to receive what he ended up receiving throughout the film. I think at some point it gets to that kind of spot where I'm like, okay, come on, let's ease on the brakes here a little bit. But I get, again, that's the point of this film, is to show you the repercussions of the downsides that can come with also becoming famous in society. So I understand it. I begrudgingly accept it. I'll leave it at this. I enjoyed the film. I'm a little bit disappointed. I thought it was going to be something even bigger, even better. But funny enough, the marketing almost misleads, which is good because I hate it when a trailer shows you or reveals too much. The trailer's still pretty vague, but alludes to something deeper and darker, which this film then delivers upon. I enjoyed Dream Scenario. Like I said, any film involving Nic Cage. Some moments of this film are awkward or are difficult to watch in the best way. It's well acted. I think it's well written for the most part. It's well directed. There's some nice moments of cinematography. And the film has some messages about society that I enjoyed and that I 100% they put it down. I picked it up and I said, yep, that's right. I agree. This is how it would be. I can see it. I enjoyed it, but not as much as I wanted to enjoy it. I'll admit that. I would be down to watch it again. I liked it a lot for what it was, but it's not quite what I thought it was going to be. For those reasons, and honestly, probably many, many more that I just don't have time to get into, Dream Scenario, I would still give it a low 4 out of 5. I would give it a low 4 out of 5. Again, I don't know about top 10 for the year, but certainly one of the most memorable, I will say that. One of the most unique premises for a film this year that is more or less executed very well. There's just certain things left to be desired for me. I thought it was a little bit too vague and ambiguous sometimes. I didn't love the ending, and I don't like kind of the narrative direction it takes, especially toward the end. Still keeping in mind the overall quality of the film and my overall personal enjoyment, I still enjoyed it. Catch it in theaters if you can. I think it's still worth a watch. If you hate Nic Cage, skip it. If you don't like highfalutin concepts about dreams and dream theory, skip it, sure. If you don't like commentaries on society or whatever A24 makes, then yeah, I guess you can let this sleeping dog lie. But end of the day, even though it's not perfect and not quite what I was wanting it to be or expecting it to be for that matter, I still enjoyed it. I still recommend it. Low 4 out of 5 seems fair to me. But thank you guys and gals so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode of whatever I do next. I'm catching up right now. I'm trying to working my way back through recent releases and realizing there's quite a few big blockbusters that I accidentally just haven't reviewed yet. So we're getting there. Have a good night. Goodbye, travelers.